Northwest and Scotland, a low of 2 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Holly Jones.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. LBC's Election Call with Eddie Mair.
Every Monday to Thursday at 6 o'clock, LBC's Election Call, where I shut up and you speak to the politicians. And if you caught the programme last night, you'll know how astute our listeners were in holding one politician to account. Tonight, it's Lloyd Russell-Moyle from Labour. He used to be a Labour councillor, and until the dissolution of Parliament, he chaired the all-party parliamentary group on youth affairs. As we've been reporting, his party's manifesto is out today. Lots of spending promises, lots of taxing promises. If you have a question about it, this would be the moment to ask. 0345 60 60 973. You can text 84850, tweet at LBC. We're live on LBC, and you can watch the whole of Election Call on the LBC website, lbc.co.uk. You can watch us too on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on giant video screens at public squares in selected cities. I hope your city has been selected. Your election call then to Lloyd Russell-Moyle, 0345 60 60 973. You're very welcome. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
I'm worried I'm going to call you Lord Russell-Moyle by mistake.
It sometimes happens when you phone up the parliamentary switchboard to ask to book a room, and if I say my name quickly, they say, "Oh, is this a new Lord?"
Oh.
And
do you pretend? Do you see what room you get?
No, well, I think I'd probably get a worse room, wouldn't you? So,
well, we can argue about the House of Lords. Maybe that'll be a question. Let's see.
Well,
what
we
people
would like to abolish it. So,
well. Maybe people will ask about that, but it's very much up to you. 0345 60 60 973. Your election call to Lloyd, not yet Lord, Russell-Moyle. Andy is in Poole. Andy, you're through. What's your question, please?
Well, thanks for that. I've got a couple of questions, actually, but if I may. The first one is, I'd like to ask Lloyd, what is an acceptable level of wealth? So if not $1 billion, is it 500 million? Is it 10 million? Is it 1 million? What is an acceptable level of wealth in his book?
OK, we'll get that one first.
Well, an acceptable level of wealth depends on the circumstances. But just like we have rules that decide about monopolies in business, and you wouldn't have a politician or a minister saying this is the exact criteria for a monopoly in the sense of how many shops do they have, yes or no. But what you have is a clear criteria and a principle that it is dangerous in a market economy to have a business dominating a high street. Billionaires, in my view, are effective monopolies on cash. And they don't need to have that level of resource. And it is a particular sign when we are not able to fund basic things, and some people are hoarding cash or power. They're not hoarding gold bars, of course. They hold it in shares and stocks and things like this, but power to such a level. I'm not going to draw a line of where that is, just like I wouldn't draw a line of how many shops Tesco's would need to be to have problems with the Monopoly Commission. But clearly there is a judgment there needs to be made, and what Labour is trying to do is to redistribute that balance so that those who are on the billionaire side end up paying a little bit more tax, and those on the non-billionaire side end up receiving more services that will help them in their day-to-day lives, whether it be childcare or the internet.
Andy, do you want to respond to that or go straight to your second question?
Well, I would like to respond to it on the basis that there must be a level which is acceptable, because it's we're talking about soaking the rich here. In particular, billionaires have been targeted, if you like, or identified as the key ones. But it kind of feeds into my second question, which is that what's the mechanics of this, and what would be the level of tax take from those billionaires? And to be clear, I am not a billionaire. I'm just interested in the mechanics of it. So, for example, and you talked, Lloyd, about having lots of cash. Possibly, yes, but I would suspect that a lot of their wealth is tied up in property and shares and so on and so forth. But actually, if you were going to take the number, and I'd like to know what the number is specifically, but let's, for argument's sake, say it's £100 million per billionaire, that would generate roughly £15 billion in tax. So would that be on a windfall basis? And how does that then feed into your £80 billion a year additional spending? Because once you've taken it, are you going to keep going back to the well and saying, right, we'll have another 15 billion from you? Or actually you start to look at people who've only got 1 million or 100,000 and so on.
Okay, Andy, how are you going to... What's the detail of taxing the billionaires?
There's not a policy to tax the billionaires as opposed to taxing multimillionaires. There is a policy to increase taxes and reform taxes in a number of areas. One of them is on income tax. And your last person was just talking about how that would work for the people earning over £80,000. Some of that is around corporation tax, and your caller is totally right, Andy, you're right, that most billionaires don't hold it in cash under the bed or gold bullions. They hold it in property, or they hold it in shares in companies and ownership of companies. And so corporation tax, restoring back to the kind of pre-2010 levels is what we're proposing.
So there's no plan for billionaires, despite your party talking about billionaires a lot in recent days.
There is a plan that will mean not that we will target billionaires, but
why not? Why aren't you targeting? You said you don't think anyone in the country should be a billionaire.
Yes, because the multitude of policies that we have will mean that it's less likely that you're able to be a billionaire, because that money and that resource will be redistributed. Because if you just focused on the income of billionaires, for example, as your caller quite rightly identified, you wouldn't hit the nub. If you just focused on the property of billionaires, it wouldn't quite hit the nub. So we will have a second homes tax. There will be increased corporation tax back to 2010 levels, and that, in our view, will mean that no one really needs to be a billionaire in this country, and actually no one also has to live in poverty on the street. Now, of course, billionaire is a particular term, but with inflation and in 100 years' time, you of course will have billionaires. At this moment in time, what we think is it is unnecessary, and it shouldn't be a case when you have people starving on our streets.
If a billionaire offered the sort of money to the Labour Party that's been given to the Conservatives, would you take it? I
can't. I'm not in charge of the Labour Party money. I would prefer.
Would you like the party to take it?
I would prefer the party to
turn it down,
to rely on donations from individuals and associations.
But we're in the middle of an election campaign. We've heard how you're being outdonated by the Conservatives, 25-1. You're saying you wouldn't like a billionaire's money 3 weeks to the polling day?
Well, I wouldn't like it if it meant that we had to moderate any of our policies, and that would be totally out of order. And I suspect the suspicion is the Tories have moderated their policies to appease their donors.
Let me put to you a point from Michael, who says, I have a question. Will you tell Lloyd Russell-Moyle what Theo Ussherwood's just told you before 6 o'clock, which I know you heard, that Labour's tax plans will affect a hell of a lot more than the top 5%? People running businesses, the 2 million people paying corporation tax, those small businesses. Mm-hmm. Do you accept that they're going to lose out?
Well, the corporation tax will return back to the levels it was in previous Labour governments. So, yes, they will lose out compared to where they are now, but they will be contributing to better infrastructure. They will be receiving free broadband, for example. They will be receiving other things that actually make it easier for their business to work, because
do you think they'd rather pay for their broadband, and you didn't take so much money from them in corporation tax?
Their staff will be fitter and healthier because we will have a better NHS. Well, you have a choice. You could say, pay for every single thing individually in society, pay a pay-as-you-go meter as you walk past each street light because you want lighting and you don't want to contribute to anyone else. Or you can live in a society where we say those who have the broad enough shoulders can pay a bit more. Now, there are things also that will help small businesses. When I speak to my local business and industries, they say what they want to move away from is tax which is upfront, so a tax which is just on business rates, for example, and move towards a profit and turnover tax, because that is fairer on businesses.
Let me bring in, if I may, thank you for that. Steve is a small business owner, is that right, Steve?
I am, Eddie, yep. Good evening.
Good evening. What do you want to say to our guest, Lloyd Russell-Moyle?
What I'd like to say to Lloyd is I run a business that turns over a lot of money, but we have a low profit margin, as a lot of SMEs do these days. I draw considerably less as a business owner than he gets as a salary for an MP, probably 30-40% less than his basic salary. And this increase in corporation tax is going to hit me. There are no benefits to it for me as a person, and more importantly, no benefits to my staff.
Really, Steve? Did you hear Lloyd just talking there about the benefits to society if you paid a little more?
Yeah, but it's disproportionate, Eddie. I agree that people that are billionaires or that have huge amounts of income, this is a typical Labour policy. They've based the taxation point for corporation tax on turnover, not on profit. So if you're in a small business that has big profit and low turnover, you avoid it. If you're like me with big turnover and low profit, I'm going to get hit in the pocket. And as I said, I draw less money than probably either of you, and some of my senior staff are paid equally to me. It will also mean that some of these people, we're going to have to get that money back somewhere, and it could end up, conversely, from his point, in people being made redundant or shortening of their working hours. It just doesn't work.
All right, stay on the line, Steve, and you can question him yourself. But Lloyd Russell-Moyle, what's your response to that?
Well, as I've said, we will leave corporation tax rates for all firms lower than they were when the previous Labour government left office in 2010.
What about his turnover point? Turnover, not profit.
So, well, for turnover, there is for low turnover, if you have under £300,000 a year, there will be a small profits rate, if that's what the term will be, for those to mitigate. But the question that I would have is, was your business running before 2010? And if it was your business able to survive?
Steve.
Because what we are proposing is no worse for you than 2010.
If you had any involvement, I'm in the motor industry, if you had any sort of involvement in business, you'd know the answer to that question. The goalpost to make a profit in business in certain sectors now has moved hugely since 2010. We now pay 20% VAT. As a business that sells motor cars, we pay VAT on our margin. We've seen increased taxation across the board, and you can't replicate. You can't look at 2010 and compare it with today. The economy's been suffering, as you keep pointing out, and your party keeps pointing out. And if you tax small businesses, I suspect whoever came up with this policy has never run a small business. And as I said at the beginning of the conversation, we could have probably stood it better back then because the market wasn't as competitive. But you're putting the onus on turnover and not profit. Corporation tax is paid on a business's profit. It's not paid on a business turnover. So if you're going to adjust a tax, adjust it directly to that proportion of a business that it affects, the profit. Don't set the barriers on turnover. It's just ludicrous. Clearly, I don't know where the people that are writing half the policies, and particularly in the Labour Party, have clearly never run a business and clearly don't understand the impact. You are going to put people out of work in small businesses.
All right, let's get the response.
About my employees.
You made that point, Steve. Thank you. Lloyd Russell-Moyle, what's your response?
Our increase will be on corporation tax, which is on profit. We will, however, give a small business exemption or a small business reduction to those earning having a turnover, of under 300,000.
It's the turnover point that's concerning Steve.
But he is suggesting that we will just tax turnover. We will not tax turnover. We will tax profit, but we will give an exemption, a lower tax on the profit for those that have a turnover under 300,000.
Yeah, but over 300,000.
Then you will be taxed on your profit, but at a higher rate than now, but still a lower rate than 2010.
Does that help you, Steve?
Yeah. No, because the tax is on profit. Therefore, the thresholds should be on profit. You've just made my point for me, Lloyd. You're taxing turnover. You should be taxing the levy should come in at £200,000 worth of profit, £100,000 worth of profit. Wherever you decide, that's where the increased rate should be.
All right, Steve, thank you very much. You made your point well. What question do you have for our Labour guest, Lloyd Russell-Moyle? The number is 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850, tweet at LBC. Our election call continues after the news at 6:17 from Holly Jones.
The Conservatives have accused Labour of planning a reckless spending spree after Jeremy Corbyn announced a manifesto of transforming Britain in a radical programme. Former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond, says he'll vigorously defend his position after pleading not guilty to offences against 10 women. The parole board says the man convicted of murdering Helen McCourt on Merseyside more than 30 years ago has met its test for release. LBC weather: cloud and showers across much of England and Wales tonight. Some clearer spells in the northwest and Scotland. A low of 2 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. There are long delays on the M40 southbound. It stays closed because of a serious accident between Junction 2 for Beaconsfield and the M25 at Junction 1A. There are queues on the M25 anti-clockwise from Junction 14 for Heathrow round to Junction 12 for the M3. That's because a car's broken down. It is very slow on the M1 northbound from the M25 to Junction 8 for Hemel Hempstead after a breakdown earlier. There are queues at Manor House. Green Lanes northbound is partly blocked at Seven Sisters Road because of an accident. There are long delays on the A13 out of town from the East India Dock Tunnel to the Beckton roundabout. That's after a bus broke down earlier on. And it's heavy in Kennington on Camberwell New Road. It's partly blocked in both directions because of an accident at Kennington Church.
LBC.
Looking for a great phone to take brilliant photos? Like an incredible iPhone 7 with a 12-megapixel camera? Then look no further than Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event. You'll find an iPhone 7 for just $14.49 a month, our lowest ever price. Be quick, this deal ends Sunday, 1st of December. Tesco Mobile, every little helps.
Best ever Black Friday based on range of products in promotion. Was £19.75, now £14.49. Offer ends 1st of December. 36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage agreement, subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
This is LBC.
Make their Christmas wishes come true with the latest trainers from Nike. Whether they want the Nike React Element 55, Nike Air Max 720 or Nike Air Max 200. At littlewoods.com you'll find all the styles they love, all with inclusive delivery and free returns. Own Christmas. Shop now at littlewoods.com.
Some regard me as a national treasure. Well, that's very kind of you, but let me tell you about a hidden national treasure. Cello TVs. Cello are the only British manufacturer of premium quality LED TVs, but without the hefty price tag. 16 to 65 inches, manufactured in the UK, there's a Cello TV for everyone. This Black Friday, get a 65-inch smart 4K TV for under £550. Search cello.tv.
A credit limit of up to £1,500. What do you have to do to get it? Simple. Get online and check if you're eligible for an Ocean credit card in minutes without affecting your credit score. For your Ocean credit card, visit ocean.co.uk now and get all that from Ocean. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One, the exclusive lender. Representative 39.9% APR variable. Borrow and spend responsibly.
You can trust some things to start your day off just right. The patter of rain falling outside. Lovely. The same rain falling inside through a leaking roof. Not so lovely. But you can make the rain go away thanks to trustatrader.com. Simply pop online to find plenty of vetted, reviewed, reliable professionals in an abundance of trades. Like a roofer who's a ray of sunshine.
Trustatrader.com. 'Tis the season to deck the halls at Robert Dyer's. Right now, save a third on Christmas trees, lights and decorations, including pre-lit trees and lights in sets of 20 LEDs, up to a staggering $800. Visit one of our 93 stores or click and collect at over 250 locations nationwide at robertdyers.co.uk.
At Lidl, we're big on those little reasons to be jolly, like our delicious Favorina all-butter mini Stollen bites for just $1.99 and 6 deluxe mince pies for just $1.35. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes NI.
LBC's Election Call with Eddie Mair.
It is Lloyd Russell-Moyle from Labour. If you have a question, it's 0345 6060 973. Salim is in Newham in London. Salim, you're through. Hello.
Yes, hello. Good evening, Lloyd. Can you hear me okay?
We're hearing you loud and clear. Fire away.
Excellent. So I've got a question for you. So it's good that Labour are proposing to build many hundreds of thousands of new homes, but have you considered removing the right to buy to protect the new housing stock that you're proposing to build? Because, that's why we're in the state that we're in now, because of the sales of the housing stock.
Removing the right to buy.
Well, I can read to you the line. It says, "We will stop the hemorrhaging of low-cost homes by ending the right to buy, along with forced conversions of social rented housing to affordable rent."
That make you happy, Salim?
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, I'm not a social home, but, it occurred to me that there was no mention up to now, which is the first time I've heard that you're going to consider scrapping the right to buy, but that's not seemed to be common knowledge.
I think we agree. There are 105 5 pages in the manifesto, so I suspect there's lots of things that will come out over the next few days. But ending right to buy as it is at the moment is a key to starting to stabilise the housing stock. Now, in 20 years' time, if it's restabilised, you can start looking at these things again, but it's going to take a good number of years to stabilise that, and for the time being, it needs to end.
Salim, thank you very much for the call. And there are lots of proposals in this manifesto. We've touched on some of them in the course of our programme. Promise to build 150,000 new council and social homes every year, pay rise for public sector workers, automatic right to stay in the UK for EU nationals, VAT on private schools, class sizes in England kept below 30, maternity pay lasting longer, a review of the retirement age. If you work in a hard manual job, your retirement age will be reviewed. More money for retraining adults in England, reduce the voting age to 16, a reversal of cuts to inheritance tax, and many, many more, as they used to say on KTEL commercials in the 1970s. My point is there's a lot in it, and if you want to ask questions on any of those details, this is your chance. Lloyd Russell-Moyle here, 0345 6060 973. Damon is in Hemel Hempstead. Damon, you're through. What's your question, please?
Good evening, Mr. Russell-Moyle. In the TV debate this week, Mr. Corbyn stated that all cases of anti-Semitism have been dealt with. Now, unless his definition of dealt with is put in the bin, he's lying. I can introduce you to a number of ex-Labour Party members who have heard absolutely nothing about their submitted claims of anti-Semitism from fellow Labour members. I'm quite willing to supply you with their names and telephone numbers if you wish for them, but there are dozens that I have, including an ex-Labour Party member who 3 weeks before receiving his gold badge, his gold pin for 50 years worth of membership, tore up his membership after being submitted to horrendous abuse from fellow Labour Party members. Now, your claims that you've dealt with it are utter nonsense and complete lies.
Lloyd Russell-Moyle.
Well, the Labour Party publishes the number of complaints it has received and how it has dealt with them in number format periodically, and we did that, I think, a few months ago last time. There is a process in place that once every complaint has been lodged, there is an initial investigation, and my understanding is every single complaint that has been lodged has received that initial investigation. The vast majority of complaints of people on Twitter and Facebook end up not necessarily being members, but being people who claim to be Labour supporters. It's very difficult for us to do anything about that, but what we can do is support our Jewish comrades to ensure that they don't receive that anymore, and we try and stop people saying those absolutely atrocious things.
Damon, do you want to come back?
Yes. I have the details of Labour members or ex-Labour members reporting fellow Labour members, and those claims have not been dealt with. Or if they have been dealt with, they've been put in the bin. You are not dealing with the problem at all. And if I say I am quite happy to provide the information to any member high up in the Labour Party that wants to receive that information. It's lies that Corbyn was saying.
All right.
I'm not dealing with it.
Let's hear the response then.
The community is up in arms.
From Lloyd Russell-Moyle.
I agree with you that many members of the Jewish community are very concerned about the handling of anti-Semitism and anti-Semitism in all political parties.
Would you like to see the details of what Damon's got?
I would urge you to write to Jenny Formby. I'm not in charge of any of the internal process.
No, I get that.
And it would be wrong for me to suddenly start meddling in one process or another. But I would urge you to write to Jenny Formby. I'm happy if you wish to CC me in so that I can ensure that it is followed up. But Jenny Formby, the General Secretary, is the right person to deal with these things. And she, I know, has been extremely rigorous so far. She inherited a huge backlog. She has got through the vast majority of it, and those cases that do come in are meant to receive logs and to be followed up. And if there's any that have slipped through the net either before Jenny or after Jenny, then we need to follow that up, and please pass that on to Jenny Formby.
Damon, thank you for the call. 0345 6060 973. Sangeeth is next in Canary Wharf in London. Hi, Sangeeth.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for taking my call. I've got a very simple, friendly question, really. I'm a GP. I worked in the NHS for 14 years. Most GPs earn £90,000 a year. most consultant physicians earn around £100,000 a year in working in NHS, and most surgeons earn about £100,000 a year. Isn't the Labour's current policies going to tax more NHS staff? Because a lot of my colleagues would potentially quit their jobs and leave the country if Labour is going to start taxing them more.
Well, I'm not quite sure about the claim about quitting your job and leaving the country if you pay a fair amount on tax. It is often said in many industries, but in practice it is rarely true. But what we need to do is reduce the burden that has been put on both consultants and general practitioners. And part of that has been, for a number of years, the current government has said they are getting rid of bureaucracy, or they are getting rid of backroom staff only. What that means is GPs and consultants have to work far harder for their money because they have to do all the paperwork, they don't get the support, and we believe a fair rate of tax, but ensuring people in the NHS are supported so they can enjoy their work and contribute well to their work, but also have a decent quality of life, is something that would make people want to stay. Most surveys show that people working in the NHS don't do it just for the big bucks. They do it because they love what they're doing, and we need to support them being able to do that, not just give them cash, but actually give them time and support.
Sangeet, what about that assertion from Lloyd Russell-Moyle that sometimes when people say they're going to leave the country if they have to pay more tax, it doesn't really come to that?
Right. I think his assertion is correct in as much as the level of tax he imposed. So the surgeons have trained for a very long time, as have cardiologists. He hasn't answered my question. Is he going to tax GPs and consultant surgeons more if the Labour Party comes into power? And the answer is yes. And regardless of what he thinks inefficiencies or efficiencies, how to run the job, in all fairness, the problem the NHS has right now is you've got too many managers like him telling doctors how to run the NHS. GPs and doctors are fully aware of how to run and work together as a team in the system. Being taxed more is not going to encourage more people to work within the NHS, is my point. I think leaving the country was a bit of a hyperbole, but you're not going to get more you're not going to increase recruitment by taxing people more, or and telling them that you know best. Because doctors have got sufficient experience to know how to run the system efficiently. We don't need more managers like yourself or politicians telling us how to run it.
Let's hear the answer. Thank you, Sangeet.
Yeah.
I speak to GPs around my area and many other areas, and GP surgeries particularly, and they struggle to recruit. And when we talk about can we put more money in to pay higher wages, they often say to me, we don't struggle because of the wage base. We struggle because of that wider infrastructure, because of the workload, because actually new GPs don't want to have to work full-time and do the paperwork and become a partner in a practice. They want to be a salaried doctor.
But are you going to recruit more people if you're taxing them more?
Yes, because what we will be doing is making the work a better place to work in, a happier place to work in, a place where there is more support for them and they're able to do their job better. And I don't believe that young doctors going into training do that because they think they're going to get £100,000 and may get a slight marginal increase in their tax will stop them. What they will want to know is that they will not be worked ragged and feel like they are on a never-winning battle.
All right, thank you for now. Lloyd Russell-Moyle here till 7 o'clock on LBC's election call. It's Labour's manifesto day. A whole range of issues in the manifesto. There may be Labour-related questions you have not in the manifesto. This is the moment to ask. 0345 60 60 973. 6:32, here's Holly with more news.
Boris Johnson says a lack of a clear Brexit plan was the hole at the heart of Labour's manifesto. Jeremy Corbyn says his party is pledging the most ambitious and radical programme of reform in decades. The Lib Dems, who released their manifesto yesterday, are focusing on winning over anti-Brexit voters. A man jailed for murdering a woman more than 30 years ago has met the parole board's test for release, despite never revealing where her body is. Helen McCourt disappeared on Merseyside in 1988. When she was 22. Prince Andrew has resigned from some of his posts following his decision to take a break from public royal duties over his association with Jeffrey Epstein. He stepped down as patron of the Outward Bound Trust and as also as Chancellor of the University of Sheffield. LBC weather: cloud and showers across much of England and Wales tonight. Some clearer spells in the northwest and Scotland. A low of 2 degrees.
Here on LBC, Matt Fry, every Saturday morning from 10.
Tom Watson resigned. This isn't a great start to a campaign, is it?
So I think Tom thinks he's done a job, he's completed that job, and he now wants to do something else.
I'm sorry, but to suggest that Tom Watson has left the race because he's happy with the work that he's done and he's ready to go into retirement, I just don't buy that.
Leading Britain's conversation, Matt Fry on LBC.
With my new teeth, I feel confident that I can eat absolutely anything I want to eat. French bread, steak.
At Darwood & Tanner, we use our expertise in dental implants to change lives.
It makes a huge difference in confidence when you can open your mouth and smile and laugh out loud with your mouth open without displaying huge amounts of grey, black or missing teeth.
Download your information pack at darwoodandtanner.co.uk today. Your smile is our healthy obsession.
There's nothing like meeting face-to-face. And there's nothing like Zoom to make that happen. Zoom lets you connect and do business across town or around the world. Zoom ties together all of your communication needs into one easy platform for video conferencing, phone calls, group chat, webinars, and your conference rooms. Connect easily from anywhere, your mobile phone, your laptop, or conference room. Zoom is how business gets done. Get your free account at zoom.com today. Meet happy with Zoom.
Let the festivities begin with a third off our wonderful range of artificial trees and Christmas lights. Homebase. Feels good to be home. Terms at homebase.co.uk.
At Lidl, we're big on those little reasons to be jolly. Like our delicious Favorina all butter mini Stollen bites for just $1.99. And 6 deluxe mince pies for just $1.35. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes NI.
Some regard me as a national treasure. Well, that's very kind of you, but let me tell you about a hidden national treasure. Cello TVs. Cello are the only British manufacturer of premium quality LED TVs, but without the hefty price tag. 16 to 65 inches, manufactured in the UK, there's a Cello TV for everyone. This Black Friday, get a 65-inch smart 4K TV for under £550. Search cello.tv.
If you're looking for a used car, you're about to hit the big time. Don't miss the Big Motoring World Black Friday event with bid reductions, big savings, and a big range of over 3,000 used cars to choose from. Get yourself down to the Big Motoring World Black Friday event. Go to bigmotoringworld.co.uk. Find them at Bluebell Hill, West Malling, and Stratford, just by Westfield.
My name is Martin Bell. As a war correspondent, I reported from conflict zones around the world. I saw the devastating impact of conflict on servicemen and women, from coping with life-changing injuries to mental trauma. SAFA, the Armed Forces charity, has for 135 years supported them. Please leave a gift in your will to ensure that SAFA continues to be there for our Armed Forces family. Search SAFA Legacy to find out how your gift can help. Thank you.
LBC's Election Call with Eddie Mair. Call 0345 6060 973.
It's Lloyd Russell-Moyle from Labour. Richard in Godstone has a question. Hi, Richard, you're through. Welcome.
Yes, good evening. My question to Lloyd is that he spent the first part showing his contempt for large corporations and billionaires who he says have too much clout, too much power, and run these monopolies. My question is, his chums at Labour are proposing to renationalise or nationalise huge swaths of industry, water, rail, airmail, etc., raw mail, etc. Are you not creating one huge monopoly this side of China? And what's the difference?
Well, this is a really good point, actually. When you have something that economists call a natural monopoly, so something that can only be provided by a single provider. So water is a very good example. Unless you're going to suddenly dig up the streets and have 3 pipes into every house and a separate water and separate sewage system, which I don't think any country in the world quite has, you effectively have one pipe. one provider in a local area, and you therefore have what's called a natural monopoly, something that you can't marketise. And the problem is if you do marketise that, and if you treat that as part of the liberal market, which has a real role in our society, the corner shop or the travel agent or whatever, they're good markets because you can choose what shop to go into, you can choose what internet website to go to book your holiday. But you can't really have a choice of what water comes into your house. You don't really have a choice of what electricity comes into your house. And if you monopolise, if you turn it into a market like we have and privatised it, all you do is allow private firms to charge whatever they want because you have no real choice, and to get off ripping off the public. And if you then bring it in, you have a number of options. You can do like the Welsh Labour government did, where they turned water into a kind of cooperative, so it was owned by the people who receive the water, the consumers, the people who live in Wales. Or you can nationalise it with a national board, or you can have a hybrid, and Labour's proposing a hybrid in most of these industries to be able to do that, and that is because they are natural monopolies, and that's really important separation of definition.
Right, Richard.
But yes, so the point is, at the moment, if I'm not happy with my water provider or my electricity provider, I can go and choose another provider, and usually you'll get a better deal. But
the water is the same that comes into your pipe. The electricity is the same that comes into your pipe.
But he has a choice. Richard's saying he has a choice if he's not happy.
You're not your water provider. I don't know anywhere in the country that gives you a choice of water provider. You have to access and pay your local sewage.
With other utilities, you can always get better deals. My question is, if you are removing the profit element from these sectors, will you commit on air to having lower prices for everyone?
Well, we will have a mixture of lower prices and have a mixture of better services, because all the profits will be reinvested into the network.
But not higher prices. That's what Richard's asking about. Will prices definitely be lower, or could they be higher?
Well, they shouldn't be any higher than they are at the moment. They might be the same. Wait a second. They might be any higher. They might be the same, and then you have a better.
What's the point of spending
because you have
billions of our taxpayers' money on buying these industries in, but then we're not actually getting anything in return? What's the point?
Because in some areas you will have a better service, and in some areas you will pay less.
My service is great. My service is fantastic. Well, I never have a problem with getting water or power. It's fine.
You will be surprised. There are some parts of Britain where the water is still not palatable and you can't drink it. There's a good number of towns.
I've never heard of a town not having potable water.
Well, that's just
absolute nonsense. It really is. You're going to be spending hundreds of billions of pounds to maybe sort
there are a number of villages and people that live in rural areas which still are not properly part of, say, the water network. There are places where they're not part of the gas or electricity network properly, places that are a little bit too far out for the companies.
Well, surely it'd be better just to put some investment into those areas. Rather than renationalise whole industry.
From where? You mean you want to give government investment to private companies to be able to do a job that they should be doing? Our plans will mean that nobody pays more, many people will pay less, and everyone gets a better service. I don't see what the problem with that is, unless you're an ideologue that you want to have privatisation.
If you're committing to lower prices, I'm absolutely all for it. But I very much doubt that you guys will commit to lowering prices on all these nationalised industries. If you'll do that, no problem at all. But can you commit to that?
I can commit to the prices either being lower or the service being better. There are some areas where the service will need some investment at the beginning, and so therefore the profits will be put into investment to get a better service.
But if you've no longer any choice, you won't have a choice as to whether you get lower prices or better services. You'll have the one company.
But it's a fake choice at the moment, because the power that comes in, your electricity that comes into your house, is the same electricity.
But you can change if you're not happy.
Yes, but you can change to another person who is the middleman. They are not the actual person that pipes it in. They are the middlemen. We're getting rid of the middlemen.
Richard, are you sold?
Jeremy Corbyn yesterday, or was it today in his manifesto speech, he reminded me of Dullboy at the market, saying, come and buy our hairdryers that usual cost £57 for £2.50, and when you get them home, you turn them on and the TV goes off. It's what he is saying is everything is free, everything is wonderful, and I think for people to believe that, they've got to be so gullible, because it just will never happen.
All right, Richard, you've had a fair crack of the whip. No, Richard has the last word. Forgive me. I want to move on to Simon, who is in Hampton. What's your question, Simon?
I was actually looking for some assurance. Under previous Labour government, you launched the private finance initiative, and I think that has done more damage than maybe the 10 years of austerity to the NHS. And I wonder, if we're going to pump more money in, are you going to put some of that money to undoing the damage you did last time you were in office?
Yes. We will write off PFIs. My view is, this is not the party's view, but the way I conceptualise PFIs is when Labour got in 97, the NHS was at its knees. Schools, my school that I was at as a secondary school kid, had leaks in the roof and there were buckets picking them up. We whipped out the credit card because the country was starving, just like a family would pay for the next meal on a credit card if they needed the food on the table. But of course, if you don't then pay the credit card back quickly, you end up paying huge amounts of interest in it. The failure with PFI was not to do it in the first place, but the failure was to not then make sure that we restructured that debt and we paid it back in a decent way. And it was because of a desire of keeping the money off the books, which doesn't now matter anyway because the National Audit Office includes them in the books. So Labour will restructure that debt by writing it off with proper government bonds, which have the lowest interest at the moment, and we would get rid of the scourge of PFI once and for all.
Simon, what do you think?
I think that sounds like magic money tree to me. I just can't quite work out where who's going to invest in these bonds for a start. They sound like utter junk. I just can't quite see where all the cash is going to come from. And the other thing
this is debt already that is held effectively debt, which you're having to pay back each month, each year to the PFI debt holder. What you do is what you do.
Going to expect the money
yes,
back.
yes, but
at some point it's going to be paid off.
Yes, you're quite right. But what you do is rather than paying the high credit card style interest rates, which is what PFIs are, you restructure them into proper government debt, in which we currently have some of the lowest government borrowing in history. Both the Conservatives, Labour, the Liberals, and all the others all recognise that, and that's why this election is about an investment election. And our investments will be to restructure the economy rather than just giveaways.
Simon, thank you for that. 0345 6060 973. 15 minutes remain. You have time to ask a question of Lloyd Russell-Moyle from Labour. We'll get to more calls, texts and tweets after the headlines now. 6:45 from Holly Jones.
Jeremy Corbyn is describing Labour's general election manifesto as the most radical and ambitious plan to transform the country in decades. Prince Andrew has stepped down from some of his posts following a decision to withdraw from public duties over his association with Jeffrey Epstein. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has called charges of fraud, bribery and breach of trust against him a witch hunt. LBC weather: cloud and showers across much of England and Wales. Some clearer spells tonight in the northwest and Scotland, a low of 2 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. There are long delays on the M40 southbound after a serious accident earlier between Junction 2 for Beaconsfield and the M25 at Junction 1A. All the lanes are open again, but it's still taking about 40 minutes to get through. There are queues on the M25 anti-clockwise from Junction 14 for Heathrow to Junction 12 for the M3 after a car breakdown earlier. It's very slow on the M1 northbound from the M25 to Junction 8 for Hemel Hempstead after a breakdown earlier on. There are queues at Manor House, Green Lanes northbound. That's partly blocked at Seven Sisters Road because of an accident. And there are long delays on the A13 heading out of town from the East India Dock Tunnel. It's after a bus broke down earlier on at the Beckton roundabout.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
At 8 tonight, our Thursday night interview and phone-in with Miss Anne Widdicombe. You won't want to miss that. First, the news hour.
Ian Dale on LBC.
According to Scotland Yard, the crime took place at 24 Culver Street, Paddington. The murdered woman was a Mrs. Lyon. In connection with the murder, the police are anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity wearing a dark overcoat, light scarf, and soft felt hat.
And so the trap is set. From the mind of Agatha Christie comes a whodunit like no other. The Mousetrap, only at St Martin's Theatre. See it now. Keep the secret forever.
The Black Friday sale with early bird savings is online and in-store now at Oak Furnitureland with guaranteed Christmas delivery. Ends Sunday.
Euronics Euronics is different. Independently owned electrical retailers in over 600 local stores across the country, offering great brands, great service, great value, and always proud to be local. That's the Euronics difference. And right now, they've got some great deals for Black Friday too. Definitely worth a look, if you ask me. Find your local store or shop online at euronics.co.uk.
Money. How does that word make you feel? You might be thinking about what you'd love to spend it on, or what you have to spend it on. Maybe you think you're just bad with money, but here's the thing. You're not. You're just with the wrong bank. At Starling Bank, we want you to feel good about money. So we built a personal and business bank account with clever budgeting tools, instant payment alerts, and no fees when you spend overseas. Starling Bank. Voted Britain's best bank twice. Download the app today. Smart Money People Awards. Eligibility criteria applies.
There's nothing like meeting face-to-face. And there's nothing like Zoom to make that happen. Zoom lets you connect and do business across town or around the world. Zoom ties together all of your communication needs into one easy platform for video conferencing, phone calls, group chat, webinars, and your conference rooms. Connect easily from anywhere, your mobile phone, your laptop, or conference room. Zoom is how business gets done. Get your free account at zoom.com today. Meet happy with Zoom.
Each day you grab the keys, pop them in the ignition, and off you go without a second thought. But what if the unpredictable happens and you wake up with something like a flat battery? You'd have been better off if someone had checked it all out, right? But that's going to cost you. What if the cost was nothing? Book a free checkup online and our experts will complete a 29-point visual check and top up vital fluids, no matter what make of vehicle you own. And we're so confident in our checks, we'll also give you 20% off your next service. How's that for peace of mind? Visit your local Vauxhall retailer and quote VX20. T's and C's apply.
Football Index is reinventing football betting. You can buy and sell the world's top players. Their value may go up and down, but it's not over with the final whistle like a regular bet. You get to stay in the game. Trade up to £500 for 7 days, and if you don't love Football Index, they'll give you your money back.
Start building your portfolio today at footballindex.co.uk. Or download the app now. New customers only, minimum deposit and conditions apply. Gamble responsibly.
LBC's Election Call with Eddie Mair.
We're here every Monday to Thursday. If you want to catch up on any of the election calls, we've got the podcast every night. Go to the Global Player app, download the app, and listen to the podcast of this programme, and you can catch up with what everyone has been saying. Tonight, it's Lloyd Russell-Moyle from Labour, and Kathleen in Glasgow is through. Hello, Kathleen.
Hello, Eddie.
Hi.
Hi, Lloyd.
Hello.
My question is Labour's view on the pension of the ladies of 1950s. It was originally known as the WASPI women. I'm actually calling from a group called Back to 60. But I would just like to know, all parties are mentioning the 1950s women, but nobody is really committing to anything.
What's Labour's commitment? Do you know?
Well, I know that Labour didn't commit to going back to 60. The whole mess that we've got in now is because there was a court case, of course, that said you had to have equality between men and women. You couldn't have a separation of dates. And that was fine. Most people accepted that over a long period you had to equalise the age. And then at the same time the government increased the age. So many women in that bracket had a double hit at once, weren't prepared for it, and then have ended up losing out. My understanding, I can't quite get the policy up quick enough for when I am talking, but my understanding is that we have talked about making sure that there is an element of support given to those WASPI women so they do not lose out, so that they can access certain benefits much more easily on an automatism rather than by means testing, and all of that, so that people are supported, and ensure that WASPI women never happens again by putting in safeguards in terms of not changing the pension anymore. And in some areas we would look at actually reviewing and maybe even reducing down the pension if you've worked in manual areas.
Kathleen, thank you for the call. Tony is next in Willesden Green. Tony, you're through to Lloyd Russell-Moyle. Welcome.
Hello there. Hi, Eddie. Hello, Lloyd. My question to Lloyd is, what is Labour's thinking in putting VAT on private school fees?
VAT on private school fees, why?
Well, at the moment you pay VAT, for example, if you have a private tutor. And our view is that if you are a body working in the private sector, you should have to pay VAT on that. We think it would be many private schools run as businesses, for-profit businesses, and they should then pay a contribution like any business. Of course, there is some exemptions for special school private schools. There are a number of charitable non-profit special schools that deal with acute autism or acute medical issues. Of course, you can't have one of them in each local education authority because you only need 2 or 3 of them across the country. They would be exempted, but your run-of-the-mill opt-out private school, which is where you're just paying privately, you would have to pay a VAT rate that you would have to pay to any private enterprise.
Thank you, Tony. What do you think of the answer?
To charge the schools, or are you planning for the schools to then subsequently, would the schools be then charging individuals VAT on top of the existing on top of their existing bills?
Would schools pass on the VAT charge?
Well, that will be down to every school, won't it? I can't speak for every school.
All right. Related to this, June text to say, could you please ask your guest how the Labour Party suggests the Department of Education could cope with the number of children moving into the public sector whose parents will no longer be able to afford to send them to private school because of the additional 20%?
Well, the local authority has a role and duty to make provisions and plan for these, and
will you provide them with more money?
Well, yes, the current calculation is a calculation per head in the state sector, and so if you have more children there, you will receive more resources.
And you happily bankroll that?
Well, it would. We don't believe that you will have huge numbers of people moving over, and those that do will potentially provide more resources for the local authorities. So that should be fine.
Tony, thank you for the question and for your text. June. Brian is next in Washington Tyne in Weir. Brian, fire away.
Hello, Eddie. Hello, Lloyd.
Hi.
Will you please scrap HS2 if you get into power?
My understanding is that we will try and reverse HS2. We believed all along that it needed to start in the north, it needed to link northern cities up. The part that's already planned and already in process of building, HS2 Part 1 or HS2A, I believe will go ahead. HS2 Part B, we will look at trying to make sure that invests in proper rail for the north and connect northern cities first. There's no point in connecting London first. London's already very well connected. We need to support that money in our northern railway network.
Brian, what do you think of the answer?
What about the environmental impacts? That's what worries me more than anything. I think it's a crazy idea having HS2 in the first place. It's a waste of billions of pounds of money that could be put into the railway system we've got now to improve the services we've got now.
Well, I think we agree that the services, particularly in the north of England, are extremely poor, Northern Rail, and that's why the investment needs to go up there first. There will need to be some building of new lines because we have a railway network that is at absolute capacity. And so I would be loath to say that we're not going to build more lines because we're worried about just the environmental costs, because actually the longer term costs of making sure people can access rail from wherever they live will help support the planet.
Nathaniel is next in Kent. Nathaniel, what's your question for Lloyd Russell-Moyle?
I've just finished reading the manifesto, and it's the end of the manifesto that got my interest. How will Labour be able to improve in our defence and security of the country?
Are you going to improve defence and security?
How are we going to improve defence and security? Well, my understanding is that we will make sure that we properly invest in some of our military. We will support military housing, which has been decimated by this government. We will ensure our service personnel are properly valued, and we will ensure that they have the resources that they need. We will increase our funding to UN peacekeeping operations. I personally think it's a disgrace that we provide almost no troop deployments on UN peacekeeping operations, and we rely completely on basically Bangladesh, Nigeria and other countries, and that will give the support and training to many of our troops as well to be active in the field. This will help not only us be safer, but it will help the world be safer and more peaceful.
Nathaniel, you've read the manifesto. What do you think of the answer there from Lloyd Russell-Moyle?
Yes. The only thing I have, it's not really, it's more of a personal thing. A couple of my friends are in the armies and they left because of the way that it's been really decimated, to be fair. And if I just want to know that future people going into the army, I'm too old now, but future people going to the army are just going to have a better chance of being able to survive, really.
Well, I'll give you some figures. 100 million for UN peacekeeping operations, of which we will support our troops in. We will scrap the public sector pay cap, which has resulted in a real pay cut for our armed forces.
Would you like to see the armed forces being bigger?
We aren't putting a number particularly on the armed forces but I think that there is a case of saying that if we are going to be putting 100 million into peacekeeping operations, then our forces will grow but will be contributing more positively for society.
A final thought on this. Shuvik in Orpington says the Labour manifesto pledges to renew Trident. What does that mean for nuclear disarmament?
Well, this is a vote that has already happened. Is not a particular point that I personally agree with. I think we should not renew Trident, but it was a policy that's been agreed. I think renewal, nuclear disarmament is a long-term aim that we must achieve. We must sign up to the nuclear disarmament treaty, is my view, and that allows you to develop a plan over a number of years, 10 or 20 years, to get to that stage. This government has refused to even sign up to it, and that's the first step.
We're out of time. Thank you very much for doing that for us tonight. Lloyd Russell-Moyle from Labour. Election Call returns on Monday night at 6. I'll be here tomorrow from 4. Tom Swarbrick with you on LBC this evening from 10. Now, Ian Dale.
Eddie, thank you very much. Well, as you know, Labour's manifesto was launched today. Will it have the same dramatic effect on this election campaign that the one in 2017 did on that election campaign? That's going to be our manifesto. That's going to be our phone-in at 9 o'clock here on LBC. At 8, I'm going to be joined by the Brexit Party's Anne Widdicombe. You'll be able to put your questions to her between 8 and 9. And in the news hour, the Labour manifesto launch will come